Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Hulu review, and today I'm going to be talking about Hellraiser. Hellraiser is an American horror movie that serves as a reboot of the Hellraiser franchise and a reimagining of Clive Barker's novel The Hellbound Heart, which it's based on. It tells the story of Riley, a young woman struggling with a drug addiction who inadvertently encounters a mysterious puzzle box while committing burglary. This box turns out to be a tool to summon a group of supernatural beings known as the Cenobites, who claim the souls of those who solve the puzzle box for their sadistic experiments. Riley works to uncover the mystery behind the box while trying to avoid becoming the Cenobites' next victim. Although I've only ever seen the first Hellraiser movie and don't know all the details and lore behind the franchise, I had been anticipating this movie ever since it was announced, and I'm happy to say the team did an excellent job with this reboot. I do have some issues with it as far as how its story and characters are written, but as a complete package, it's an entertaining, atmospheric, and chilling horror flick that fans will enjoy. After so many sequels apparently being terrible, it's great to see this franchise return to form once again. Out of all the characters, Riley is the most notable due to her being the protagonist, though I wouldn't exactly say that she's memorable. The only distinguishing trait about her is her drug addiction that she's recovering from, which is a noble goal, but in my opinion, it's not portrayed well. It just doesn't ever seem to be a major focus at any point outside of a few scenes in the beginning. It's nice that she has a goal to pursue aside from surviving the Cenobites, but it's only barely touched upon, which is disappointing considering the overarching theme of the series revolves around the dangers of overindulging in one's vices and desires. This being said, I found her character started to improve more in the final act as far as her wanting to chase after her desire, and for a much different reason apart from drugs. I won't spoil this for the review because it is an important plot point, but I appreciated the emotional depth it added to her character, and it connected much better to the theme in the long run. The rest of the human characters aren't really worth mentioning. Most of them are stock vague adults that exist just to show off the creative kills in the movie. To be honest, I didn't expect all that much depth behind them, but I wish they had at least a little bit more personality. The only thing that stands out amongst them is the drama they cause between each other with Riley's addiction and characters getting killed off. And even then, it's little more than cringeworthy dialogue and shouting matches that never go anywhere. The actors do a good job with their roles when they can, but I just couldn't bring myself to care about what happened to their characters. I did like that the movie had evil human characters in it, just as the original did. The character Roland Voight added a more religious element surrounding the puzzle box, as well as this air of mystery behind his disappearance and how he connects to everything that happens in the story. He's the only notable human character besides Riley, which is good because he really does help elevate the movie. At the end of the day though, this is a Hellraiser movie, and if there's one thing that has to be included in it, it's the Cenobites. They're easily the best characters in the whole movie, and the story gets a lot more interesting once they start showing up. The sheer variety and creativity of their grotesque visual designs are morbidly fascinating, with things like flayed skin, missing body parts, and horrific appendages fixed to their bodies, just to name a few examples. No Cenobite ever looks even slightly similar to another, which suggests each of them having their own story that can hint at how they became what they are. They also have different mannerisms that make them stand out from other Cenobites, and they all remain in keeping with their obsession of exploring the limits of sadomasochistic pleasure. This makes their actions that much more terrifying as they start killing off the human characters one by one. By far the best of the Cenobites though, and the main reason to see the movie, is the priest, aka Pinhead, who's played by Jamie Clayton. She had big shoes to fill in the role made famous by Doug Bradley, and it's great to see her put her own spin on the character. From what I've read, her version of Pinhead is more faithful to how the character was depicted in the original novels, as being more androgynous in appearance and having a more feminine voice. Even though this movie is clearly meant to be different from the original novel, it's nice that the filmmakers still had that attention to detail in mind. Beyond this, Pinhead in this movie is straight up intimidating, but in a much more subtle way compared to Bradley's take, and I say this as a big fan of Bradley. This movie's Pinhead is much more quiet and calm when speaking to the humans, which makes them feel more sinister. However, this also works in the humans' favor, as Pinhead is open to exchanging their gift to others instead of giving it to whoever's marked by the box. On top of adding an element of strategy for the humans to exploit, there's almost a sort of moral code despite their penchant for torture that makes the Cenobites seem more chaotically neutral than outright evil, which is fascinating to think about. The puzzle box is something else that's expanded on this time around as well. Instead of mostly staying the same shape throughout the movie like the original, it changes with each kill made by marking the victim who solves it, and bestows a reward from hell once it reaches the final stage known as Leviathan. I love how this expands the lore and backstory behind the series world, though I can't help but feel it's used a bit too much. Maybe this is another thing that's faithfully adapted from the novels, but it kind of kills the suspense behind the Cenobites reveal with how many times it's used, and this cheapens the menace and mystery behind them. As far as the kills go, they're pretty entertaining. I like that the movie didn't immediately dive into becoming a gore fest and had some characters killed off without showing what happened to them. It leaves a lot to the viewer's imagination as to how they died, which is terrifying to think about considering what the Cenobites are capable of. The movie definitely ramps up the violence more later on. Some of the kills are downright disturbing with how gory they can be, which might disappoint those into thinking it plays out like a slasher flick, but I don't think it's that excessive. There's always a natural progression of events throughout the story, so the violence escalates to reflect the rising stakes the characters face as they come closer to solving the mystery. The atmosphere becomes a lot creepier too as the story approaches the climax. The horrifying imagery, the dark lighting, and the brooding soundtrack make the audience truly feel like they're being ripped from reality and being immersed in hell along with the characters. The fusion of modern day environments with dark gritty hallways and other foreboding backdrops help with this as well. There's something unsettling about how the locations and set designs are both extravagant and disturbing at the same time, and it's a fitting quality for something like the Cenobites whose vision is beyond human comprehension. I'll admit the movie didn't impress me a whole lot in the first act, but it started getting better in the second as things unraveled. And the third act? I mean, wow. Talk about an amazing finale. This is where things start to get real intense, as the mystery of Leviathan finally comes to a head in a big showdown. The movie is able to overcome the mediocre writing of the human characters at this point, and raises the stakes to such a degree that it's hard not to care about them even a little bit. Roland Voight's role and a Cenobite's motivations are explained without overburdening the viewer with exposition, and still leaves enough questions open for future sequels to follow. And with all this taken into consideration, the central theme of vices and overindulging in one's desires still remains intact. It got off to a rocky start with this in the beginning, but was able to recover and make better use of this theme later on, and it still remained an eerily fun ride on top of that. Overall, Hellraiser is a scary good time of a horror flick and a fresh start for a series that is more than worthy of a reboot. If you like horror movies and want to see one that's more disturbing in nature than excessively violent, you should definitely check this one out, especially if you're a fan of Hellraiser. Bottom line, it's a Hellraiser movie through and through, and a pretty good one at that. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does a great job at polishing it for modern audiences, and after decades of disappointing sequels, it's nice to see one that truly lives up to its namesake. What did you think about this movie? Did you think it was a return to form for the series, or were you not quite as impressed with it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Hellraiser. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American horror movie Grim Cuddy. Bye bye!